Hello everyone, welcome to Swedish Dude's first Ask Me Anything. The last few days I put a call out for questions about my time in China and teas, and I got some great answers. I was expecting some of the I was expecting questions about tea, maybe a little bit about tea regions, but you guys really got deep on some of these questions and really got to the heart of living in China, being a foreigner in China, sourcing tea, and yeah, so we're going to get into that now. What I'm drinking as we talk is the 2025 Jin Mudan Red Tea. This is not the Wu family. It's not the one on the website, but this should be on the website. It's not as good as the Wu family, but it's cheaper and a little bit more bang for your buck. Not as complex, but bolder flavors, textures. This would bless an Yixing teapot. So this is going to go on the website, as well as a video comparing the two and talking about the kind of price to quality rate, like slope, and how it's kind of a diminishing returns thing. So we'll talk about that another day. So let's get into these questions. So here we go. Question number one. So I have a kind of order for these because some of these questions kind of overlap, so I'm going to jump around a bit and put some together. Okay, question number one. What are some of the places you have visited in China that have surprised you? Either culture, food, scenery, or things that seem unique or stood out to you. So, when it comes to food and culture, not too much surprised me. I grew up in New York City, going to a lot of Chinese restaurants. I worked in a Chinese restaurant. I kind of knew the different types of food going in. And the same with culture. Grew up in New York City, and when I was working at Tea Drunk, Xunan Tong not only taught us a lot about tea, but a lot about Chinese culture. And even she would take the staff to eat, and she would take us to the more authentic spots in New York City for food. So food and culture, obviously I learned a lot more when I came in, but generally I had a good understanding of that going in. Though the work culture is a whole other conversation. Work culture in China is very different and something I still struggle with. Scenery though has blown me away, especially the mountains. I remember two times particularly. Was one time I was going from Hokway City, the town, to the Hokway producing villages. So you have Taiping City to the Hokway producing villages, Hokung. And I remember I'm in the taxi and we're driving down this road, this mountain road. And we're in the middle of the mountains. There's mountains on both sides of us, and the sun is coming down, and the mountains are covered in forest and bamboo, and there's a river that runs between them. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. And I just remember the taxi driver was talking to me because he was taking me to this village, and he was asking me how are you going to get back, and I was like, I don't know. And he was like, you have to know. You have to find a way to get back. And so as we're going up and we're having this conversation, he's telling me I have to find a way to get back. I was just thinking, no, I don't. This is gorgeous. I was like, I don't ever have to leave this. So that's one time I was blown away. The other time was I was visiting Alex of One River Tea. I was visiting him in Enshi. And Enshi is a more remote part of China. Once again, beautiful mountains. And even on the high-speed train, I remember sticking my head out of the high-speed train at each station as we approached Enshi and just being blown away about how beautiful it was. So the mountains have really blown me away. That's one thing. I think that's the most surprising. Question number two. What's the grand plan of your current adventures? Where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years? This is a good question, and this is actually something I am kind of facing myself because I don't know. I am coming upon a fork in the road. I've been here 9 years. I have accomplished a good amount of things. And so, as you guys know, I have this dream of the tea house in the future, which is going to be the next question. Tea and knowledge-wise, I have enough to comfortably open a small tea house. It probably won't have the greatest collection of teas, very similar to what's on the website. You know, not the biggest selection, some obvious holes, but what's there, quality and knowledge, and a variety of expensive and cheaps. So that's one option. One option is that I could just go to China. I could leave China in the next few years, go to New York, open this tea house. The other option, though, is I stay in China a little bit longer and I go deeper. More teas, deeper into the teas I really know. When I first came to China, I had this idea that just 1 or 2 years would be enough for me to go really, really deep and understand all these things. Quickly realized 1 or 2 years is not enough, and I'm not sure if I'm really where I thought I was going to be, where I wanted to be when I went back to America. And so I'm at this point of, do I want to just say, hey, I did a good job, let's enter this next chapter of my life and open this tea house in New York, or do I want to say, no, let's go deeper, let's do it, go big or go home. So I'm at a kind of fork in the road in a few years. The big thing is going to be when Pumpkin dies. I got Pumpkin knowing I could not take Pumpkin back to America. She's just too big, it would be too expensive. And so as she enters the last few years of her life, she's really slowing down. She doesn't really want to take walks anymore. She just wants to lay at home. When she dies, that's going to be kind of the time where I say, okay, what's the move here? And who knows, maybe a few more years, and at one point I could say, okay, I'm ready. But we'll see. I don't know. I could go deeper, I could go home. And this actually kind of leads into another question. Does it seem like you're further away from your NYC shop than when you first started because there's so much to learn? Yes and no. Like I said, when I had this idea of what I could accomplish, when I first came to China, I had this idea of what I wanted to accomplish. And in my head, I thought I could do it in 2 or 3 years. I have not accomplished that. I am not at the level of understanding that I wanted to be at. But I also realize how deep that level of understanding is and how much work that's going to be. And how that maybe it's not necessary, and not really necessary even up front. Even if I were to open the tea shop in New York, I'd still be coming back to China, still sourcing, still learning. And so one of the questions I'm asking myself is, okay, at what point can you say, I'm satisfied with living in China? Let's go back to America and do this next chapter. It's really a tricky question. One, there's not really a right answer. Kind of a flip of a coin when the day comes, unless I got kicked out of China before that. I'm currently having a little bit of visa issues, so at any moment, I'm just like, yeah, so let's see. So it's really hard to tell. All right. We've got some sourcing questions I want to get into. Okay, let's go into that one. This is a good one. Favorite tea of the year. How was the sourcing and the process of finding tea similar or different to your normal experiences sourcing tea? This is a good question. This year, I made a video. I've made so many videos I haven't posted. I need some help. I just need someone to just to do the final details. I do 90% of a lot of things, and just that last 10%, I need someone to do that. Just to edit and post it. I need someone for that. This year, I think one thing I kind of thought about this year is kind of a decentralization of the tea season. The tea season just felt like a lot of work for nothing this year. I felt like I was really busting my ass and stressing myself out, and I didn't really see why. And the tea season, sourcing teas, going around to these different locations and sourcing teas is great for content. It's great for videos. But when it comes to yielding the actual teas, especially for when it comes to yielding the actual teas, it can be a lot of work for sometimes not much result. And especially teas where I have a maker I like already, I couldn't help but be like, why am I doing this? I can just wait till he's finished and have him send me samples. That was the thing. And I've talked to other tea makers, tea sellers in China, and they've shared similar things, where they're like, yeah, it's a pain in the butt. I think the tea season, I remember when I first came to China in 2017, and pretty much pre-COVID, the tea space online was different. And if you were selling tea online, you had to go to China during spring season. You had to go to China. You had to make the content, because everybody else was making the content. Everyone else was going to China. Sohan Fan and, I forget who else, I'm blanking on names. Unearthed Tea, Marcel, and Conrad. Like, everyone came to China in spring. And so if you weren't sourcing videos too, you were getting left out. Then COVID hit. And I think COVID hit, and what that showed people is that they didn't have to go to China. Like, they could just have their makers send them samples. Because I remember I kind of liked it, because I was living in Huangshan, and I met a lot of the tea sellers as they passed through Huangshan. I made a lot of good friends. Unearthed Tea. This is how we started. He came to Huangshan and we had tea. I bumped into Don of Mayleaf Tea in Huangshan. I met a lot of tea sellers and made friends just as they traveled through. And I remember when COVID ended and I was excited for people to come through again, and then they didn't. People didn't really come like they used to. So I thought that was very interesting. Just a change in the market. So I think last tea season was okay. Last tea season I focused and went a little deeper into Huangshan, and that was interesting. It wasn't a let me hit all these different locations. It was let me go deeper in this one location. Next tea season, obviously Longjing is going to be a focus. Huangshan is going to be a focus. Going to go a little deeper, even more into Huangshan, get some good content. But like white teas, I don't really know if I need to source if I have to go to Fuding to source white teas. Also, because watching white tea making is really fucking boring. That's not great content. Like, because it's just tea sitting in a room. And they move it and they shuffle it and they're like, okay, we'll come back tomorrow. And that's white tea making. It's not like you go to Mao Feng and you go to green teas and the oolongs and they're shaking and they're rolling and they all this stuff. White tea is like, oh, yeah, okay, we'll come back later. Maybe we'll move it into a bag. Maybe we'll turn the fan on, But, so last season was kind of funny because of that. And I think that's what maybe made me feel like, I don't really have to do this. When's my next pre-sale? I'm going to talk about that again today. As you guys know, I'm going to be honest. As you guys know, I just moved to Hangzhou, and that's expensive, and I don't know when the next time I'm getting paid. So I need a little liquid money. So we're gonna do a credit, a pre-sale credit, a buying store credit today or tomorrow. Today, actually. I don't really do pre-sale. I don't know if I really do pre-sales anymore. I might do sales later, but today or tomorrow, I need some liquid money, just to be quite honest, some liquid funds to buy tea and to buy stuff for the website. So we're gonna buy store credit. We're gonna do a store credit sale today. What is your advice fighting human-sized ducks or bears? Don't. Fucking don't. Don't fight a bear. You're not Russian. Don't fight a bear. Don't even fight a human-sized duck. Them bitches are... Don't. Though if I had to fight it, I could... Definitely don't fight a bear. Fighting a human-sized duck... Go for the neck? I think the neck would be a weak point. Choke it out, get on its back, choke it out would probably be a best guess. Go for the eyes. Yeah, the eyes and the neck. That bill is big, but it's not sharp, and I think that's the only thing that would make you not die immediately. The eyes and the neck. The eyes would be the first one. Don't fight a bear. You're not going to win. Animals are just so much more muscle than we think. What got you started on Grandpa style of tea grind? I got really into Grandpa style when I worked in Suzhou. And when I worked in Suzhou, I was working at an international school. And this was really one of the first times since I had started drinking tea seriously that I had to be in the office all day. Previously, I didn't really have to be in work until I was needed. And so I would go in, work hard, teach classes, do paperwork, and then leave, right? But this was the first time where they were like, even if you have nothing to do, you still need to be here. And I remember when I first got there, I was bringing all these really nice teas, and I was like, well, that's kind of dumb. I don't want to drink a really nice tea right now. I want to drink a tea, but I'm wasting the really nice teas because I have to get up and then I have to maybe print something and then I do have class and so like that's what got me into drinking cheaper teas and then appreciating grandpa style. Tea for the sake of tea, tea in your everyday. That's what got me into grandpa style. And then also moving to Geelong. So Geelong, long story short, was me with so much free fucking time and basically no social life. I spent a lot of my time by myself there, to the point where like I almost didn't want to do Gong Fu Cha. It was almost like too much. Like I'm not doing anything, so I just want to kind of throw leaves in a cup, and yeah. So that also really got me into grandpa style. Just throw leaves in a cup and walk the dog and do this. But Suzhou was really adding tea into things I already had to do. That was the real thing. How do you feel you've been treated and received by Chinese tea producers and sellers as a Westerner trying to source teas for us? Have they tried to rip you off? Do they treat you fairly? Do they assume you're selling to wealthy Westerners and charge you too much, etc., etc.? Any insight from your experience so far would be interesting to hear. So I don't actually think I'm treated that differently from a Chinese tea seller, Chinese tea buyer. I have a lot of people, I've had a lot of Chinese people who warned me that they were going to try and cheat me because I'm not Chinese. But then tea sellers will sometimes also try and cheat Chinese people. You know, at the end of the day, the taste is going to be what matters. The taste is going to be it. So it's kind of, you know, it's hard to cheat taste, you know. I have and this is why I really like to focus on the one tea at a time or one area at a time, where they can give me a tea and tell me the price, and I can go, no, that's too much. That being said, there was 2 times where I got 2 or 3 times that someone tried something a little funny. The time I got tricked was constantly cheated is when I first started buying white tea. I was going to Diento and I was buying from this guy. And I'd been with him a couple of times, and I thought we'd built this relationship. But I remember I bought a tea from him once, and it wasn't quite the same. Well, I wanted the unwild, and he sent me the wild. He gave me the wild, or maybe the vice versa. I wanted the wild, and he gave me the unwild. Yeah, I wanted the unwild, and he gave me the wild. And I tasted it, and I was like, is this the wild? He goes, no, it's the unwild. And I was like, okay, tastes like the wild, and I didn't really like the wild, but I was like, fine. And then I went back to his shop, and I remember I'm in his shop, and this was months later. I'm in his shop, and he's shooting a little video, and he was like, this is my foreign friend. He bought the wild. He bought the wild white tea. And I was like, you son of a bitch, I knew it. You son of a bitch. Like, he unintentionally admitted that he had cheated me. But I was like, fine, whatever. And so that time I bought something. I wrote an article about this, and I think it's on my old blog and maybe the new one. And so I left, and then I went to buy, and then the next tea season I was messaging him, and I was like, hey, I want the unwild. Like, this is what I want, and I wrote it in writing. He was like, okay, great. So, I think something had happened where I had bought tea from him and he had sent me something different. And he goes, I'll send it to you. And I was like, no, I'm going to go pick it up. Because at this point, you kind of like, was there a misunderstanding? You know, you're kind of giving him the benefit of the doubt. So I go to his shop, and I said, okay, I want the unwild. And he goes, all we have left is the wild. I say, no. We agreed to the unwild. And we kind of started arguing a bit. And he goes, I don't have any left. And I was like, well, that's bullshit, because you promised me some, and I'm not taking it. And we were arguing, and then his wife actually kind of leans over to him and goes, in Chinese, and this is when I first got to China, and they didn't know I knew Chinese. Well, I didn't know Chinese, but I was starting to learn. This is one of the first times I secretly understood someone. His wife leans over and just goes, come on, he's a friend. Like, we had gone to dinner. Like, he was like, come on, he's a friend. And he goes, fine. And he fucking pulls out what I want. And I remember he went to the top shelf and pulled it out. Like, he knew exactly where it was. And I was like, fuck you, I'm never buying. And in my head, I was like, I'm never fucking buying from you again. Because that was a very clear, like, you tried to trick me. But I don't know if that's because I was a foreigner or he was just kind of sketchy. There was another time where I had bought some dansong, actually. I had bought some dansong in Wudong, and I really liked it. I bought like a pound, and then I messaged him, and I was like, I want 3 more pounds. And he sent me 3 more pounds, but it wasn't the same. It was not the same. And I think, you know, if I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt, he baked it, he roasted it 1 more time. It was both a Wu-Ye, or Da-Ye, it was both a Da-Ye, but one of them was just a watermelon Jolly Rancher, and the other one was like, no, it's not the same tea. Now that I say it out loud, I'm like, that's not the same fucking tea. And I messaged him, and I was like, this is not the same fucking tea. And he goes, yeah, it is. And we kind of went back and forth, and there was nothing I could do. Same thing happened to me with some Tier Kuan Yin. I found some really good Tier Kuan Yin. I got a sample from Taobao, really liked one, got the most expensive one. He sent me something else. And in that case, I was like, no fucking way. And I went all the way to Quanzhou. I went from Huangshan to Quanzhou to his shop, and I was like, give me the real fucking thing. But he like took me to dinner, and then he was like, so, do you want a refund or do you want to just keep the tea? And I was like, just keep the fucking tea. But I never bought from him again. And then the last time was actually in Huangshan. It was in Huangshan. I had tasted some Maofeng from Monkey Valley, and I was like, yep, I like this. And he sent me more, and I was like, this is not the same. And he goes, yes, it is. And I was like, fuck you, I'm coming. And this time, because with the Tier Kuan Yin, I didn't have the original. I had gotten 2 servings, and I drank them both. But this time I was able to take the Maofeng back to him, and we're looking at the 2 Maofengs, and he's like, they're the same. And I was like, let's brew them. And we add them to water, and as soon as they open up, they look different. They look completely different. And he goes, so you want a refund? And I was like, yeah, I want a refund. Or he was like, I forget if I got a refund or if I got a replacement. I think it was a refund. He was like, so you want a refund? I said, yeah, I want a refund. And that was it. That was the funniest thing. Because we put them in water, we put them in a cup, we added water, we just sat there and looked at them for like a second, or for like a few seconds, and that's, nothing else was said. He was like, so you want a refund? And I was like, yeah. It was just an understanding, like, okay, you got me, you're right. It's happened before, but once again, I don't think it's because I'm a foreigner. You hear Chinese people getting tricked too. I don't think it's foreigner. No, I don't. I also don't think they don't think I'm selling to wealthy people. They actually don't know. They often ask me if Americans like Chinese tea, and I say, yeah, actually a growing number. But I have to say, the majority of people do treat me well. They do give me fair prices. I mean, you see the prices on my website. They're fair. Every now and then, if I don't know a tea, I think every now and then I'll be like, I paid too much. But once again, I don't think they're treating me different because I'm a foreigner. Oh, that's a good question. I think we're going to end with that. Oh, there's another question somewhere, I know. Someone asked, someone asked if I could live anywhere in China. If money wasn't an issue and I could live anywhere in China, where would I live? Because some of you might know that where I live in China is kind of predetermined by where I can get a job. And so, especially as the job market is a little bit tougher now, you're kind of stuck to bigger cities. So the question of if I could live anywhere, where could I live? It's 2 places, Chaozhou or Wuishan. Wuishan's amazing. Wuishan is so much fun. It's a beautiful town. I like the people. And the Wuishan market is so deep, and I would love to just... I've spent a good amount of time in Wuishan, but if I could just live there, and there's a small possibility that one day I could. There's a kindergarten there. The pay isn't high, the pay is pretty low, but if it gets me in Wuishan, fuck it. Yeah, so Wuishan would be one. Chaozhou would be the other. Chaozhou was another place. I visited Chaozhou once. Chaozhou is the Fenghuang Dansong region. Chaozhou was a place where I remember I visited Chaozhou and I was walking through kind of an old area of it, through some old houses, and I was like, this is fucking gorgeous. Just these low houses with the round doors and some vines and just gorgeous. Fucking gorgeous. Chaozhou food is amazing. Chaozhou culture is really deep. Chaozhou is another one. I've heard of a very low paying job in Chaozhou, but once again, that was a place I would love to just live for some time and get in there and get to know it. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And Dansong, I don't know much about Dansong to be able to really get into Dansong and understand it, because I know you guys love it a lot. It's not my favorite, but you guys love it a lot. Here's one. Were there moments where you wanted to move back to the States? What kept you where you are in China? What kept you in China? Yes, of course there have been moments where I want to go back to the States. I've moved around a lot. So first of all, COVID. COVID was the time I wanted to go back to the States. We're locked up, especially there was the protests / riots in New York. New York seemed to be on fire, and I felt kind of weird being so far away. COVID dragged on extremely long, and if I didn't have the dogs, I would have gone back to America. If I didn't have the dogs, I would have said fuck it and gone back to America. Funny story. The only reason I'm in China is because of the dogs. So in the winter in 2019, my dad gives me a message and he's like, hey, would love to have you back during Chinese New Year. And he says, I'll pay for your plane tickets. Don't worry about it. Would love to have you to come back this year. I had just gotten Pumpkin. I had gotten Pumpkin in August of 2019. And I was like, so I messaged, I was like, hey, thanks so much. I would love to, but I got this new dog. I didn't really know about where to kennel the dog yet. So I got this new dog. I got to be here for its first year. That year, COVID hit. If I had gone home, I wouldn't have been able to come back. So I was almost not, if it wasn't for Pumpkin, I don't think I'd be in China right now. So that's one time, COVID. Also, there's been other times. First of all, changing cities is hard. Going through visas is hard. Right now I'm dealing with visa stuff, and part of me just wants to go, just go home. I'm so tired of having to do visa stuff in China. You have to do it every time you switch jobs. Ridiculous. And look, I'm very much a New Yorker. I really, really love New York. My plan is to end up in New York, and so all the time I think about going home. I think about going home a lot, but I know that the longer I'm in China, the more I can do. So, yeah, I do feel like, let me take a quick glimpse. I do feel like there's someone missing, and I'm sorry if yours are missing. I was not too organized. Yeah, got that one. I was not too organized getting them collected. Alright, I think I got them. I think I got them all. I apologize if I missed your question. If I missed your question, I can give you a message directly. But that's it. Thank you guys so much. I'll do another Ask Me Anything again in the future. Look out for this tea on the website, and look out for buying pre-sales. Buying store credit. Thank you. I appreciate all of you. Bye-bye.